So good.
Hey!
Hey, Dylan.
How is it going?
It's good. I'm having a nice, lazy Saturday.
Yeah.
As you could tell.
Yeah.
I'm in jammy jams.
Yeah.
Just chilling.
Yeah.
Made some of the best French toast I've ever made in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
It looked good.
It was very, very good. Very, very decadent, very rich, seasoned perfectly. Plus, David's parents brought back like this bourbon whiskey maple syrup.
Okay.
Which has been some of the best maple syrup that we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
So like that plus my best French toast, it was like the marriage of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Keep going.
No, it's great. I'm just like bragging over my delicious breakfast making skills.
You know, whenever I make something, whenever I cook something and it turns out perfect, I'm always like, I have no idea how I did that. I never really keep track of the differences that I make between.
That's fair. I usually don't, but this time I can tell you about it.
Yeah, tell the listeners as well.
I can reveal the secrets.
What are the secrets? Heavy
whipping cream.
Okay.
Instead of milk.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it more of a custard, which is perfect. You have to use nutmeg along with cinnamon and sugar because that helps to bring out the seasons. It's a bit more rich of a flavor.
Listeners, are you writing this down?
You should be. And then that's it.
Okay. Pretty simple.
It really is, honestly. But whenever it comes to like breakfasts or sweets, that's what I do. Regular stuff, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
But French toast.
French toast, pancakes, banana bread, cupcakes, cookies. That's my forte.
What is this podcast?
What is it?
What is this
Straight
podcast?
Up, it is a medical cooking
Fashion,
politics, religious, spirituality podcast.
And sometimes we even talk about true crime.
Just sometimes.
Sometimes we talk about the weird, the bizarre, and the surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about some weird and bizarre, surreal stuff earlier, although I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as such. I'm just trying to transition.
Okay, cool.
As a child,
yeah,
I had severe hyperpronation.
Is that the proper word for flat feet?
Yeah.
I'm not a genius, although I probably sounded like one at that moment, audience. I just want to preface that. We were just talking about this beforehand.
Yeah.
Dylan, I thought, made a joke about his flat feet. I laughed, and he said, no, I'm serious.
No, I am serious. They lengthened my Achilles tendon by snipping it in 2 places. They reattached tendons, they lengthened other ones, and they put cadaver bone fused to the top of my foot.
Wait, you are like an anomaly.
I have another man's or woman.
Another person's
bone in my foot.
That's sick, actually.
And one day, if I'm ever spiritually weakened enough, that person will take over and assume control of my body.
I was going to say, did you notice any personality changes after you were surged on?
When the doctor surged on me, which, by the way, doctors are not supposed to do.
Terrible.
No, but I got Vicodin back when Vicodin was still a thing.
Jeez.
Yeah, given a 13-year-old Vicodin.
13. Jeez, Louise.
I'll tell you what.
Were you just high as a kite?
Well, that spurred my lifelong obsession with opiates.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, not true.
That's what he just has to say, audience.
But yeah, this is going to be the intro variety hour where we talk about a whole bunch of random stuff.
Yeah.
We're talking about French toast.
Baseball.
Baseball.
We didn't talk about that.
Let's get into it.
Wait, we didn't finish talking about your flat feet, though. We got to talk about this is important.
I was in...
how about this? Did you always know that you had flat feet?
Yes. There's really no way of not knowing.
Really?
Yeah, your feet turn in like a duck.
I didn't know that.
And you start walking on your ankles if it's bad enough.
Are you serious?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. So one of my tendons on the top of my foot had torn off sometime over the course of my life. I remember exactly when, because I was in a Taekwondo session and was stretching. And I said to my sensei, I said, is it supposed to feel like your leg is on fire? And he was like, yeah. But little did I know, one of my tendons had ripped off. And in the middle of surgery, when they were working on unflattening my feet, they said it was like going up to a house and there was no front door. So they had to reattach that improv style halfway through.
I don't like that's fucking.
They also
wild.
cut off my entire heel, moved it down a few inches, and then put nails through it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Why have we never talked about this? Again,
Oh.
I thought you were joking. This is like the time whenever I was little. I'm so gullible. I really am. You've taken advantage of it quite a few times. And that's never changed throughout the course of my life. And I'm also, I wouldn't call myself a jokester, but like
God forbid I call myself a jokester, a goofer, a gaffer even.
A goofer and a gaffer. But like I'm used to like just like joking around and like having a good time. Like whether it's like a running gag or whatever. So have you ever seen the movie What About Bob?
Yes, with Bill Murray.
Yes, and Richard Dreyfuss. Yes, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And that was like one of my favorite movies growing up. And like my dad and my sister and I had like this, just like we would just like make jokes from the movie. And one of the jokes, if you remember, is that Bill Murray is a hypochondriac. It's so freaking hilarious. So freaking hilarious. But one of the jokes that he says is, if you fake it, you can't have it. So he'll fake a bunch of diseases or disorders just to make himself feel better that he doesn't have them. And one of those disorders was Tourette's. And that's where I first learned what Tourette's was.
Oh.
And one of my best friends, whenever I was in elementary school, I started like faking Tourette's as a joke because that's like that was like I didn't know better. I was in elementary school because that's what Bill Murray did. And she said, "Oh, my dad has Tourette's," and I laughed. I like burst into laughter. I thought she was playing along. I didn't know her dad actually had Tourette's. And then I went to her house, and I can confirm he has
That is
Tourette's.
crazy. How long did he keep it up?
To this day.
Yeah, I thought you had Tourette's.
To this day.
You know, if you think about the plot of the movie, What About Bob? It sounds like the synopsis of like a horror movie.
It is. It really is.
Somebody who is severely like mentally ill.
Yes.
Who goes to a successful psychiatrist who's unable to help them, and then that patient gradually follows them and gradually sort of ingratiates them into the person's family.
Yes.
Terrifying.
It literally, well, it's like the cover of it. It's kind of like that. It's
The Shadow?
The Shadow.
Yeah,
it's like a horror movie, and even like the opening credits, like it's kind of like ominous with like the thunder and lightning and stuff. The beginning is like the goldfish, but yeah, it does allude to that.
Let's talk about baseball.
Sorry,
I didn't know. I've known Madison for like 4 years now.
Yeah,
and never once have we ever talked about sports.
No,
but I learned today that you actually enjoy baseball.
I love baseball.
Crazy.
I fucking love baseball.
One of the most boring sports in the world.
Rude. I didn't know that you had surgery on your feet and had a cadaver and had your heel ripped off and reattached with nails.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Hey, we're all learning new things about each other today.
We just walked in like, hey, what's new? Oh, literally half of your life that I didn't know about.
Listener, tell us something about yourself, and we'll just pause here to let them talk. What, really?
That's so fucking dumb. Nobody cares.
Oh, goddamn. It has been a fun, eventful, exciting few days.
Yeah.
Went to karaoke again.
God.
I feel like I fucking killed it.
You did. This is the best you did. Truly.
Thank you so much. Those voice lessons are really paying off.
I can tell. No joke.
Yeah, one of the songs that I wanted to sing wasn't on YouTube, so I uploaded it my damn self.
Yeah, Dylan was committed.
Truly.
That was the best one.
Thank you so much.
It was the best one.
Yeah, and you sang Sabrina Carpenter.
I did.
Sounded just like her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What a compliment. Mm-hmm. Appreciate that.
She recently released the album art for her new album, which has been quite controversial.
It has been. We talked about this.
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about it?
It's very complicated. If you haven't seen the album cover, look it up. Because you'll probably... I don't know. So she probably has full creative control at this point in her career.
For sure, 100%.
She can do whatever she wants.
Absolutely.
She definitely chose to do this. I don't think anyone really pressured her into doing it. And her sexuality is like one of the selling points of her image. That's
Yeah.
kind of what she pushes in most of her songs. And we talked about what responsibility does an artist have to their audience? Because when you put out something like that at that level of popularity, it's going to have implications or consequences rather for the people who see it, for the culture that it's introduced to. And it becomes a very complicated thing. What are your thoughts on it?
So we talked about this at karaoke. It was really funny because you couldn't really hear each other, so we were just like screaming over the music to talk about this topic. But I used to be of the mindset that if I was Madison 5 years ago, I would have said, it's degrading. Like, why are we doing this? Like, it's anti-feminist, all this and that. Nowadays, I kind of disagree with that old Madison. So one of the examples that I gave was that kind of like changed my mindset about it. And I did not grow up in a environment that was conducive to a feminist ideology.
Wow, diplomatically said.
Trying to be as diplomatic as possible. I grew up in a very conservative household, very Puritan religious beliefs. So that Madison would have been, you know, it's a lot of untraining out of me in terms of like that ingrained learning that I've had. And I've noticed a lot of that as I've gotten older. So I think that's why I feel so strongly about it to this day, is just because it's taken a lot to like change my mindset about things. But I also see both sides of the coin. So anyway, going back, I was in college 5-6 years ago now. It's fucking crazy. And I was in an advertising class, and our assignment was to choose an advertisement and like comment on it, like from a marketing standpoint, from a societal standpoint, like just comment on it. And one of the ones I chose was an old Super Bowl commercial of like this model, big busty in a bikini, like very sexually eating a hamburger. And it was like
It's
a
like
fast
a Hardy Jr.
thing. Basically, yeah. And I was commenting on it, and I was like, this is like, it's unnecessary. Like, sex sells, clearly, and that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
But during a family event, I have some pause about it, and I don't know if it's like what's the point in like having a woman sexually eat a hamburger to sell it? Like, and I had some issue with that in terms of like body image with young girls and just like hypersexuality. Like, it just felt unnecessary. And my professor, just playing devil's advocate, said, well, like, if that's her choice to do that, wouldn't that be like the entirely what feminism is about?
I understand that, but at the same time, every choice we make is subject to some kind of pressure. No,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But in that sense, for me, I think like if like you do what you want to do. Now, of course, viewership wise, I can see how that is. If it's in a Super Bowl commercial and like there's young girls who are seeing this, like it might have an impact in that regard. But in terms of the woman who is doing the sexual eating of a hamburger, like pop off, like do what you want.
Go off, queen.
Yeah, go off, queen. So like that's kind of how I feel in regards to Sabrina Carpenter's new album. For context, because we didn't give much of it, her new album is called Man's Best Friend, and she is pictured on all fours like a dog at a man's feet. And so like in terms of the commentary today, I understand the argument that like with the rise of, like we just talked about, like with the rise of like trad wife, like hypermasculinity, like with that being on the rise in young men and like coming back around basically on social media as like a trend, I understand the harm that can bring. But at the same time, if that's the way that she wants to express her sexuality, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like if you want to be like submissive with your partner in that regard, even playfully so, even if it is taken seriously, go off. And in this case, it's, from my perspective, clearly satire. Her first single was called Man-Child, and she alludes to men being pigs, taking like a bubble bath with them. Like it feels like it's very satirical.
Yes.
So in that regard, I feel like it's honestly smart social commentary, truthfully. Now, I think if you take it out of context, which many people do, I can see people thinking like this is degrading, this is all this and that. And part of it probably is. And that's kind of why she's doing it.
Satire can be a very dangerous thing.
It can be.
People who interpret the message that you're conveying satirically as completely straight-faced,
Yes.
your opinion can lead to a lot of miscommunication.
Yes.
I've seen it happen in my own life.
Yeah.
I tend to tell a lot of jokes straight-faced.
Listen to the Tourette story.
And
I just told.
yeah, I tend to tell a lot of jokes straight-faced,
Yeah.
and people just believe me.
Yeah,
when I tell just like outright lies
It's me.
that are meant to be jokes.
I'm people.
And then they assume that I am libertarian when I tell them that I'm libertarian as a joke.
Okay, well, I don't go that far.
But yeah, satire can be very powerful at conveying a message, but it can also backfire tremendously. And in the current environment where we do see a lot of young men having issues with their ability,
hyper-toxic masculinity and their expectation,
their expectations of
yeah.
women and what they should be themselves.
Absolutely.
It introduces a really complicated thing into like the national discourse over this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine because I think that mature people are capable of having conversations about this kind of thing.
And I think the problem lies whenever people don't have a conversation about
Yeah.
it. And that's where the trouble lies. And then at the same time, like, if you were to talk about, like, maybe it's not right for the time, I can understand that, especially where we're at in this national climate. It's not great. But at the same time, one, I think you're right. It's something to be talked about, and that's why it's here to stir a conversation.
Yeah.
Clearly, there was a business choice behind it as well.
Sure.
So there's all that, but then also like there's always going to be a point in history where something is like it's never going to be the right time for something like that. And that's kind of the purpose of it. Like there's never going to be a right time to talk about certain societal expectations. There's always going to be something in the world going on, in the country going on, that's going to make it like controversial. So like honestly, in my opinion, why not talk about these things when things are the most divisive they've ever been, the most troublesome they've ever been?
Well said, yeah. There really is never a right time for this kind of message, for really any kind of message that carries this much like cultural impact and luggage with it.
Yeah.
And why not talk about it now?
Yeah.
I think that's the right way of approaching it, for sure.
Agreed.
Welcome, folks, to My Existential Crisis,
The podcast where we talk about all the things that make us question our entire sense of self. My name is Madison Epley.
And my name is Dylan Berger. Madison, what happens when you die?
Wouldn't I like to know?
That's a question we've talked about on the show.
Yeah.
And it's a question that humanity has wrestled with since the very beginning.
Yeah.
We know what happens on a physical level. The person stops breathing, stops moving, is no longer responsive, starts to decompose. They're no longer there in the same way they were when they were alive. They essentially become vacant. Thousands of years into humanity, and we still don't know.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, not with all of our technology or understanding of the larger universe. It remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries.
Yeah.
We can speculate all we want, but ironically enough, we've reached no conclusion. You can believe scientific materialists and say that our consciousness just disappears. You can believe the spiritual community and say that we ascend and transform into orbs.
That's what you'd like to be.
I would love to be an orb. You can believe people who have experienced death and come back, but even that can be scrutinized and picked apart. Just a byproduct of a brain that's short-circuiting. So what happens when you die? Well, what if the reason it's so opaque is because you never actually die?
Okay. Didn't we just talk about this in like your other episode? Wasn't that like the one part of the theory?
Which
that
one?
you just like never actually die? Like what was the one that literally like the last one that you did? It was like not that you never die, but like
The soul trap theory?
yes, thank you.
Oh, that you continuously like reincarnate?
Yes. Is it kind of like that?
Well, this is more concrete in that your physical body doesn't even die.
Oh, never mind then. Okay.
Yeah. This gets at a theory called quantum immortality. and it's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Okay.
So what is quantum immortality?
Please enlighten me.
Well, it goes back to something we talked about in our episode on determinism. You might remember the many worlds theory of quantum mechanics. It states that all possible outcomes of quantum events actually occur, each in their own separate universe.
It broke my brain, that episode. I remember that vividly.
Now, the idea of quantum immortality branches off from this theory to suggest something really strange but somewhat believable. From a first-person perspective, you'll never actually experience your own death. Because in any situation where your survival is possible, there's always at least one universe where you survive.
Okay.
Your consciousness shifts and continues into that one universe.
Wait, that's sick.
Yeah, meaning you'll never actually die. You'll continue to shift indefinitely, delaying death as this quantum defense mechanism preserves your body until the end of time.
I literally think this was a Rick and Morty episode.
This is also what it's like to get your license renewed. Now, let's look at things in a slightly different way. Imagine you're in a situation where there's a small chance you'll die. From the outside looking in, from a quantum perspective, there are many versions of you that branch out in all directions, and most live and a few die. Well, you'll only ever experience the branches in which you live because your consciousness doesn't experience the versions where you're dead.
Why is that?
Why?
Yeah.
Because consciously we can't experience death.
Like, it's just like lights, like, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
So subjectively, no matter how unlikely it is, you'll never die.
Okay.
You might get injured, paralyzed, ill, etc.
And because consciousness cannot, because death is lights off where consciousness doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you continue to survive against the odds in any situation, which are always in your favor, ironically enough. To provide a little more explanation, imagine you're playing a game of Russian roulette. You have a revolver with a single bullet in one of the 6 chambers. In a world where quantum immortality is taken as fact, you'll pull the trigger once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And on the 6th, the gun jams. Or you shoot yourself, but continue to live.
Okay.
I think that illustrates things pretty well.
Okay.
Now, let me ask the listener something really quick. Have you ever died? No? You've just proved quantum immortality. And it's such a difficult thing because it's an airtight idea. We can't disprove it. Of course we're alive, and because we're alive, there's evidence of this theory. And though other people might die, those people aren't us.
So, okay. So if people who do die, mm-hmm. they might die in this universe, but they're still existing in others.
Right. They might be living on in their own subjective universe.
Okay. What about like aging? Are there just like, is there just like a universe full of people who are thousands of years old?
Well, it's my understanding that everybody living in their own subjective universe can see other people dying around them. They themselves, because consciousness can't exist upon death, branch off continuously into other universes where people continue to die around them, but they themselves don't die. They might age, they might get sick, they might get injured, dismembered, but they continue to live, even reaching an impossible age, possibly being downloaded into a computer. They live indefinitely.
Okay.
As a sort of quantum defense mechanism against non-existence.
Okay. And just because we have not experienced and heard anything about that in this plane of living, that it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in others? Is that the theory? Like because we haven't experienced people being uploaded into a computer or reaching impossible ages in this current universe that we're living in, doesn't mean that can't happen in other ones. Is that part of the theory?
Quantum immortality is both applicable to everyone and also subjective at the same time. So in your universe, this universe, people continue to die around you, but to you can never die. You'll just branch off into other universes. Just like the people who died around you branched off into their own universes.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
It does and it doesn't. So, like, I guess whenever we're branching off into our other universes, like, what does that mean?
So, our consciousness essentially shifts.
Shifts to another universe?
To another universe that's very similar to your own, in which you did not die.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we just like either start from wherever in that universe age-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I did not understand that aspect of it. Okay.
That's essentially how it works.
Okay.
Now, have you ever had a near-death experience or a near miss, something like that?
I don't believe so.
You never had a near miss where you like almost died?
Actually, maybe. Yeah. I was driving with my mom. We were going, it was storming pretty badly. And being the people that we are, we wanted some ice cream from like this like famous ice cream shop back home. It's called Shaffer's. And it's out like in the middle of nowhere, kind of. So we were just like hanging out. It's storming. We're going to Shaffer's to get ice cream. It's pouring pretty hard, thunder, lightning, all this fun stuff. And probably like 10, 20 feet in front of our car, in between us and the intersection, we're like stopped at a red light. There's a car at the front. We are just like pulling up and like approaching the intersection. A tree branch falls down. Yeah.
Right in front of you.
Right in front of us.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's probably the closest I've been to danger.
Yeah, so
in that like fatal way.
According to the theory of quantum immortality, in our universe, that branch hit your car.
Yeah.
And you died, but you shifted into a universe in which the branch fell in front of your car.
Okay.
And you continued to live.
Okay.
Now, I've had a few near misses myself.
Really?
Yeah, I remember I was driving my Juke on a highway.
Of course. What was the Juke?
Yeah, when this enormous moving truck came barreling up behind me and swerved to the left at the last second and was so close I could feel my car jostle from the wind.
Oh my
that
gosh.
the car was pushing. Well, it suggested that any near-death experience you might have had actually resulted in your death in a parallel universe. But like I said, you shifted into a universe where the outcome was different, allowing you to live.
Damn.
And this is where theories start to intertwine a little bit.
Okay.
You, of course, remember Bashar, the
yes.
interdimensional alien entity channeled through a man named Darryl Anka.
Cousin of Paul
Anka. Yep. And he commented on this idea. He claimed that sometimes when you die, you decide to keep living your life. Consciously, you decide to keep living your life. And so you return to your body at an earlier point and experience a near miss.
I really wanted ice cream. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Now, while this in no way proves the idea of quantum immortality, I thought it was a fun intersection between this episode and the past one.
No, I like how they're intertwining all these different theories.
Yeah. I've kind of noticed that across episodes as well.
Yeah.
Now that we have a grasp on the idea of quantum immortality and how it works, how does the idea make you feel? Good? Bad?
It's cool. It's cool. I think I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It feels like a Rick and Morty, Jimmy Neutron like time jump. Like it happens so instantaneously that you wouldn't expect it.
So you'd be fine living indefinitely?
I think it depends on what that entails. I think the idea of like immortality sounds really nice, but at the end of the day, like living's got to get boring at some point.
Yeah.
You know, watching the world basically like go into entropy over and over again has to be exhausting.
Yeah, I mean that's what this theory kind of implies, that you would continue to live forever as your loved ones around you die.
Exactly.
As the new friends you make die. As you continue to age.
Yeah. See,
as you get sick.
That sucks.
Or paralyzed or lose control of your body. And
that sounds like hell.
It does, doesn't it?
People have said hell is repetition. And I can't think of anything more hellish than being at the end stages of your life. You're aged, your body has given out, like it's ready to go. Your mind is going in and out, and that's just you forever. Yeah. You're just stuck in that way.
But is it better than non-existence?
So like that's the thing. One of my friends, so like I have a thing with time. Afraid of time, and honestly probably because I have like I have a fear of death. Truly,
it's healthy.
It feels pretty healthy to me, at least. But like the idea of just like lights off is terrifying to me. And my friend asked me the one day, because we were talking about it, and she said, why is it terrifying? And I said, because I can't imagine that. And like the idea of just nothingness is just like petrifying. And they said, well, you wouldn't be experiencing that. It would be lights off. So you wouldn't be experiencing the nothingness. You just would cease to exist. I thought about that. I'm like, that's that's equally as terrifying to me in some ways, but also comforting. Because like I wouldn't know that I was no longer existing, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I go back and forth between, is that comforting or is it even more terrifying?
Yeah. No, I get that. I don't think I am too afraid of death because I am convinced that something is after death.
Yes.
I've been thoroughly convinced that that's the case.
Yes.
So it doesn't really bother me as much. But non-existence as a concept,
That's terrifying.
well, it doesn't exist.
Oh, that's the thing. It's terrifying because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like how do you just go into non-existence? You don't.
No.
You don't experience it.
It's just a self-eating idea that doesn't work on a
Yes.
conceptual level.
Yes.
Because there is no nothing. That's the definition.
It's not like you're just like floating around in a senseless orb, like not
Right.
experiencing anything, just like darkness, no sound, no light, no
Yeah.
feeling. It's just that's not even there because your consciousness isn't even there to experience that. It's just nothing.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of how people feel about this theory, one man found the idea of quantum immortality pretty frightening, and it changed the trajectory of his life.
Oh shit.
Here's where we get into the story of Reddit user AFH43.
Okay.
8 years ago, in the Ask Physics subreddit, user AFH43 posted the following. The theory of quantum immortality has driven me to a state of pure anxiety and terror over the last week. Is it true? Has it been debunked? I can't do this anymore.
Oh shit.
AFH43 makes a few more posts that same year, the next in Ask Science. He says, the theory of quantum immortality has driven me to a really dark place. I'm living in a state of pure terror. Is there a reason not to believe it is true? Can it be debunked? AFH43 then went to Ask Philosophy, posting the same thing before they returned to Ask Science, posting, the theory of quantum immortality has driven me to a really dark place. I'm living in a state of pure terror. Is there a reason not to believe it is true? They returned to Ask Philosophy, posting, scared of quantum immortality. Please help me. Why don't you believe in it? They posted in Ask Science again with, I am freaked out at the possibility of quantum immortality. Is it a credible theory? They then moved over to Ask Science Discussion, posting, the possibility of quantum immortality is making my life unbearable. Is it a credible theory? It makes complete sense to me, and I can't believe I'm the only one losing my mind over it. They then moved to the more broad subreddit of our advice, posting, existential crisis. It won't stop. I need help. I can't do it anymore. I fear that because I am something in this infinite universe, I will always be alive. Quantum immortality, it makes so much sense to me, and it is ruining my life. What do I do about it? I need to rest. Later, they posted in RS Physics with, is quantum immortality real? It is making me lose my mind. They posted again in Ask Physics, in Ask Science, in Ask Philosophy, all with variations on their same post, all within the same year.
Did they get any answers or anything?
Well, they made one last post to Ask Physics, and this is a little dark, trigger warning for suicide.
Fuck.
They posted the following, quantum immortality, I'm killing myself soon. It's too much. I can't do it anymore. They responded to one last post and haven't been heard from since.
Oh my gosh.
Now, there's no real way to know if the profile was legitimate, if the person was trying to get attention, or if they were suffering from a mental break because of this idea. I get the feeling that this is legitimate because AFH43 didn't appear out of nowhere. They had their Reddit profile for some time. And that's kind of heartbreaking. I read more of what they posted before things started to spiral. And there's one earlier post that felt truly tragic. A year before everything happened, AFH43 posted the following in our DIY. Looking to attach a sliding piano drawer under my desk for music production. How do I go about getting the drawer to lock in place so it doesn't move when I'm playing the piano? What parts do I need? I've included inspiration pictures.
So like a real person.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like a contrived account.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Truly.
Like what I can't like what a hopeless feeling to be like calling into the void, a literal void that is Reddit, like looking for community, what Reddit is known for, and like feeling so alone and lost and hopeless. Like that is heartbreaking to me.
Yeah. Truly.
Damn.
Yeah, it's very heartbreaking. And There are ideas that are just kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
I think this is one of them.
Yeah.
But to our listeners, take everything you hear with a grain of salt, because we know so very little about like everything that goes on around us, let alone the nature of reality.
Like literally so much of science and math and physics are theories for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they're things that we've been able to reliably recreate, but how do you prove it? Like the theory of relativity, like the Pythagorean theorem, like all of these concepts that we know, like are just made up.
Yeah.
Everything's made up.
And what we're talking about today is very firmly a theory.
Yes.
Now, that theory isn't perfect, and it's been heavily scrutinized by people who know what they're talking about, namely physicists, scientists, philosophers. They tend to point out that the theory relies on unrealistic, idealized circumstances that are impossible, or at least very difficult to realize in real life.
Yeah.
Even those who believe in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics are a little irked by the suggestion of quantum immortality. Max Tegmark, a Swedish-American physicist, laid out a pretty convincing idea in opposition to the theory, pointing out a flaw.
Okay.
Dying isn't a binary event. It isn't black and white. In most cases, it's a progressive process with a continuum of states of decreasing consciousness. It's only in an abstract scenario that someone who's dying defies all odds. The theory of quantum immortality relies on an abrupt transition, which doesn't make much sense. All of this also relies on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which, by the way, isn't proven. So it's a theoretical interpretation, so I wouldn't be too worried. Now, let's say that we're somehow able to prove quantum immortality. We arrive at such a thorough understanding of quantum mechanics that we can say with 100% certainty that quantum immortality is real, and we've proved it. How do we punish a crime like murder?
Yeah.
Yeah, technically the victim didn't die.
Yeah.
They branched into a universe where they continued to live in spite of the killer's actions. The body might be deceased, but that person's essence continues to live on elsewhere. Of course, there would be significant consequences for the victim's loved ones.
Yeah.
They still have to deal with that pain and loss. But can you really say that you've killed someone if that person didn't experience the killing?
Yeah.
Surely both people have to be affected for the murder to take place. How would you go about punishing, in a quantum court, the crime of murder?
I think that feels pretty clear, honestly. Like, even if this were true, even if, you're not really killing somebody because they can never die, they're just shifting into another universe, it's almost like kidnapping. You're forcing somebody to leave this life that they may or may not have loved. They have ties here that they did not choose to leave, and not that death is a choice, but unless it's suicide, but like you're robbing them of like this existence for a little while longer. So that it feels like thievery and kidnapping almost.
That makes sense, yeah. Would it still be fair to give the killer life in prison?
I would say so then, in that regard, because if in a quantum court, if this is true, the death sentence, all you're doing is kind of setting them free into another universe. So in that regard, they're not being punished for their actions. Like, of course they would need to be life imprisoned to really feel like the punishment of that. At least if they're going to, for as long as they can, they should be trapped in this dimension at least until they do die of whatever causes.
Yeah, it's strange. It's definitely strange stuff.
Yeah.
It gets very complicated.
It does.
Now, I think it would make for a really interesting defense in court, at least, that you didn't kill someone technically.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you killed them physically.
I think in a world where that is like exists and proven, I feel like the crime would be different. I don't think it would be called murder necessarily, or if it was, I think it wouldn't be the idea of someone no longer existing, but I think it would, like, the meaning would shift.
Yeah.
To like that robbery, thievery, kidnapping type of thing.
Maybe be called something like non-consensual displacement.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
There are many other frightening implications of quantum immortality as well. You'd continue to live on indefinitely, which means you'd attract the attention of organizations who might want to study your longevity.
Yeah.
You might start engaging in
Rickety.
Please do not engage with Ricky. You might start engaging in risky, reckless behavior because you knew you never suffer death. You'd only ever get injured at worst. Going back to what we were discussing before, the justice system would have to be completely reconfigured to account for different branches of reality. And the psychological toll would be enormous. I mean, look at what happened to the Reddit user that we just talked about.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, they weren't able to handle things. Now, with all of this in mind, who's to say that we don't already have confirmation that this theory is true and it's being concealed to maintain law and order? Probably not.
No.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
Now, with all of this said, Madison, what do you think about quantum immortality?
I think it's an interesting theory. I think, like, with a lot of, I don't know, like, I think it sounds idyllic in some ways, and then it sounds like hell in others. And I would rather, even though it might be, like, nice to have for a little bit, I think eventually it would just wear out. I think for everybody, it would just wear out, and you can't really do anything about it. Like, what do you do at that point?
Yeah.
You just have a world of half miserable people, half people who are loving the ability to just, like, jump if something bad happens.
Yeah.
You'd be able to take more risks in life if you were able to prove it. You'd be able to try more things that you might feel inhibited to try otherwise. But, yeah, then at the end of the day, just sounds miserable.
Yeah, I think so too. But before we sum things up, there's another idea I want to present.
Oh, shit.
It's a different take on quantum immortality, and I think it's a lot more haunting.
Okay.
Let's say that we're dying right now.
Okay.
We're dying as we speak.
Love that.
In our moment of brain death, our consciousness has splintered into an infinite simulation, spinning the idea of reality to delay the moment of non-existence. In defiance of death, our brain has created this dream, preserving your life in whatever form it's able to, even if that preservation is only an illusion. Because isn't an illusion better than nothing?
Yes.
And isn't it more likely that we're living out that infinite dream of death rather than the short 80 or 90 years we're given?
What do you mean living out the... I'm sorry, can you repeat?
If you live 80 or 90 years and you die, and that dream of death goes on infinitely, isn't it more likely we're in that dream than the preceding 80 or 90 years?
I guess. Can you, like, re-explain the dream of death? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, the brain is essentially creating a simulation to delay the moment of non-existence. Kind
of like when people say their life flashes before their eyes.
Exactly. Maybe life really is flashing before our eyes, but not as quickly as we expected.
Okay.
All of the near misses, the deja vu, the occasional feeling of unreality is explained.
Damn.
And if that's true, then I guess we really can't die as much as we might want to.
Damn.
Sources are AFH43 on Reddit, Wikipedia, and Max Tegmark.
Wow. That was fascinating, Dylan.
Thank you.
I love that. That was probably one of my favorites that you've done.
I'm glad to hear it.
I like how it ties everything, like a bunch of other things in. That's a really cool concept.
I appreciate it.
What are your
It was
thoughts?
a lot of fun to research. I don't believe the theory. I think that quantum immortality is like fun to speculate about.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that we can't disprove because it's impossible to disprove. So all we can really do is talk about it. It's kind of a dangerous idea in that way because we can't disprove it.
Yeah.
But it's also like saying like right now heading toward Earth is a meteor that's going to kill everyone and it's going to do so in like a day.
Yeah.
And we can't disprove that either. But we live our lives because the alternative is submitting yourself to an unhealthy idea that's going to make you miserable.
Exactly.
And why not be optimistic with that same, frame of mind?
Yeah. Why not live the life that you have in the best way that you can or want to?
Exactly right. Yeah. There are a million terrible things that could happen, but we keep on living because, I don't know, why do we keep on living?
That's the question of it all, isn't it? Why do we exist? What's the purpose of life? Is that the next thing you're going to cover?
That's a fun question. I think that you just decide your purpose.
I think that that's true.
Yeah.
Too.
I don't think there's one.
You make your way. You make your purpose.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I like that.
Meaning of life is a life of meaning.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, folks.
Thank you, Dylan. I love this a lot. Like I said,
I'm glad to hear
definitely a favorite of mine. Thank you.
Certainly.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Little unhinged at the beginning there, but, fun nonetheless. If you have any topic ideas you'd like us to consider, feel free to reach out. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at MeCrisisPod. You can send us an email at myexistentialcrisis@gmail.com. Dylan, where can they find you?
Marblefolk.
And you can find me at Madison Epley. Thanks, guys.
All right, folks.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Bye.
Bye.